Nikki Haley says she's staying in the 2024 race despite trailing former President Trump. And this is fueled by a $16.5 million fundraising haul in January from some big donors. Joining us now is Puck's Teddy Schleifer. And I understand, and Teddy, I read the Wall Street Journal op-ed pages. There were, and she points out, Governor Haley points out that there were 15 people at the beginning of this, all announcing to try and get the GOP nomination. Now there's one. And I don't know how many potential legal issues are remaining and how that plays out for Trump. But if you're the last person standing, you might as well stay in, especially. And I think that's what donors are thinking, too. It's that simple.
Sure. I mean, the Haley campaign over the last few days has been really stressing that they do not see the South Carolina primary this weekend as the be-all, end-all event for Nikki Haley's campaign. Obviously, they're going to say that, and they're not going to talk about herself explicitly as an insurance plan against, a Trump legal catastrophe. But donors will. Donors will tell you that privately, that the Haley bet at this point in the cycle is not all about her winning the election or winning the primary through normal means. That a lot of this has to do with the belief that who knows what's going to happen in a trial in May or June or July. And wouldn't you rather be the person who's still running for president of the United States than not?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of, a lot of side benefits that go along with that. People are going to follow you around. You're going to be very important. I understand that. But the numbers don't lie, and we know what's happening probably in South Carolina. The crazy thing, Teddy, is that in this surreal, bizarro world we're living in, we've got a crazy similar narrative on the other side. Because yesterday we had a guy come on who actually said Gavin Newsom is not liberal. And in fact, he's doing a great job on homelessness and crime in California. I still see articles that Michelle O definitely waiting in the wings. So both sides are doing CYA because the nominees, the presumptive nominees, are so unpalatable to most Americans. It's bizarre.
I think what's different is the Republican donor world is actively preparing for a possibility that Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee. In the Democratic donor world, that is not the case. I think there's lots of wish casting. I think there's lots of major givers who, acknowledge in private moments that Joe Biden has, an age problem, obviously, and that Joe Biden may not be the strongest Democratic nominee. But I am not detected.
He's it. You think he's it?
Yes.
I'm not convinced. Yes. I'm not convinced. There could be. We've had. I don't know. The same type of legal catastrophe you talk about on the Trump side. We'll see how the State of the Union goes. We'll see what he can muster. Maybe they'll mainline some Prevagen or some. I don't know how they're going to do it. But people in the know, they know in their heart of hearts, they like to hold on to power, but they know that this guy should not probably be the nominee.
Maybe, but I think that the Democratic Party donor and establishment more broadly is pot committed at this point. The time for Democratic Party elders to discuss whether or not Joe Biden was the best nominee was in 2022. It was in maybe early 2023. It is February 2024. The Democratic convention is in a few months. I do not think that there is any serious effort being made
state of
to move him up.
Because 2 years from now, I mean, you've seen what's happened in the last 2 years. You see the video of Joe Biden from 2 years ago. You see him now. We're talking about 5 years from now. 5 years from now.
Joe, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not going to disagree with you about the age issue. What I don't understand
you always come up with that.
No, but I don't. But
the end of democracy versus age.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah. But what I don't understand though is. And Teddy said, look, in 2022, the elders of the Democratic Party should have, or that was the time for them to make a choice.
But more and more are doing it now.
What about the elders of the Republican Party?
They're on board because of the base. You can't win without 35%.
And my question to you is, given the fact that this man is on trial around the country, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Do you think that the trial? You haven't
so empirically correct. It's so empirically obvious, but obviously I'm wrong. I'm wrong in that there's people who
you haven't figured out that the trial in New York what a sham the way this came out and turned out. Who was damaged for the $355 million? Does the trial in Georgia seem to be going well for you? You can't see how someone would come to the conclusion that none of these things are, and that they're all orchestrated in trying to take down the leading nominee. You can't see how people would think that. So 40% of the country, 40% of the country doesn't understand that Andrew knows.
Did you see January 6th? Wait, do you have you're
You mean the insurrection where people were home for dinner? Isn't it usually preceded by armed? Isn't that normally what you really believe that was going to be an overthrow of the U.S. government? Teddy, you're here, you're listening. Go ahead, you can comment on all these. What do you think? This is our life.
Sure.
Most of them.
I mean, look, I can just kind of tell you what I'm hearing from my reporting, which, when you kind of talk with people who are, Democratic major donors, they're not blind either. They know that Joe Biden has a problem on his hands. You ask them, what would you do about it? And these are some of the smartest, wealthiest people, who are on Squawk all the time. And I haven't really heard a clear, convincing answer. The age problem that Biden has is often met with whataboutism, right? What about Trump's age? What about Trump's legal problems? Right. And none of those answers are solutions for the fact that Joe Biden is as old as he is.
And Kamala Harris is waiting in the wings, the most unpopular vice president in history. Probably.
Sure, it's unclear who the replacement would be. And also from a donor perspective, the Democratic Party is going to have tons of money. Joe Biden is doing very well in fundraising so far. Maybe he's not doing as well as Obama was, but he's doing well. There's obviously lots of anti-Trump energy, lots of anti-Trump money that is going to flow into Democratic super PACs, none of which it can really necessarily affect, the fact that Joe Biden, would be the oldest president in United States history. And, you can maybe put up some TikToks or some memes that make him seem young and cool and hip. But this is a law of nature that Biden is as old as he is, and it is unclear from an advertising perspective what you can do about it.